in a moment, on the screen behind me, we'll play a short 60-second snippet of a 2.5-minute film that I wrote and directed, and it was released in December of 2021, so some of you might have already seen it. I know for a fact that some of you really like this film, and others not so much. I'm one of you, by the way. But whatever your perspective is, I do want you to hold on to it because it matters. Your perspective is important. When you watch this film, I just want you to think of one question and one question only, and that is, what could have been done better? I present to you my short film, Coffee for Two.
How are you holding up, Maya?
I'm better. I really am. Well, naturally, the first month was the worst of it. Every night went slower than the last, and every day felt empty without you. I took life minute by minute, and before I knew it, gray became color, and just surviving became actually living. I felt free.
If you ask me what could have been done better about this film, my response, everything. All of it. There was not one thing about this film that I can truly and honestly say that I liked. The dialogue delivery was flat, the editing was choppy, and the writing was lazy. There were all these small little things that contributed to me seeing this film as an artistic failure. Now, I never wanted to talk about the film. I wanted to completely erase it from existence. And if anyone ever asked me, hey, what about that film that you directed in December? I would have wanted to say, what film? I don't know what you're talking about. Now, note that these concepts aren't like these abstract, faraway constructs, but they're rather lived experiences. And my experience of it, I hope, can bring about an idea worth sharing. Now, before I get into the big idea, that key secret to never failing, let's just talk about failing to begin with. So, the first step of the 3-step process is unfortunately also the easiest, which is hitting rock bottom. Everyone here has experienced failure in some form, whether it's something as small as missing a deadline or doing badly on a test, or something as big as losing your job or letting someone down. Well, we all define failure in different ways. It could either be, you don't meet someone else's expectations, or you don't do something, completely perfectly, 100% up to the mark, to each their own. Personally, I have always defined failure as the feeling of not being proud of myself. My parents have always told me that as long as I try my best, I have something to be proud of. And my very cool parents are sitting here in this audience. So this became my mantra to success. This became how I measured my success. Just try to picture this for a moment, okay? The date is 9th November 2021. I'm on a 2-hour flight from my hometown Lucknow back to Mumbai. I open the tray table in front of me. I'm 30,000 feet up in the air. I have my laptop, and I say to myself, I'm going to write a film. And I have 2 hours to do it. So this was my chance to create something brilliant. This was a chance for me to express my creativity and my passion and my love for filmmaking. And so I left that plane with a fully formed first draft. But I was really unsatisfied with it. I knew that it would need a lot of work before becoming a strong story. So here's where I had to make a decision. I could have either stuck with what I have, or I could have taken the time, maybe a few weeks, or to just make a strong story, ask for advice from the people around me, and really make something that I'm proud of. But I was so excited to go up and actually shoot the film within the next few weeks that I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm just gonna keep this weak story, I'm gonna brush it to the side, and I'm gonna cover it up with some mind-blowing cinematography, some really top-of-the-line, convincing performances. So maybe that will make it better. Maybe that will make me proud. The date is 16 November. It's almost exactly a week after I've written the first draft, and it's the night before the shoot. I have everything in place. I have a filming location, I have a tripod, I have my mom's iPhone, I have all the props. I don't have one thing, I don't have an actor. So I panic, and I call up every single male friend that I have, and I ask them to play the male character of my film, but some of them were out of town, some of them were busy, it was very last minute. But finally, one of my closest friends, who's also sitting here in the audience, agreed to act. And he told me from the get-go that he wasn't very experienced. So here's where I had to make another decision. I could have either stuck with him and just finished the shoot off within that same 1 week, or I could have taken the time out to, ask my parents maybe if they knew any other actors, and just waited to find someone a little more experienced. But because the second option would take more time and effort, it's no surprise that I went for the first. So I finished the shoot, and I sat down on my laptop, I started editing all the clips, started putting it all together, and in my post-production stage, I thought, okay, maybe this will make it better, maybe this will make me proud. The date is December 1st, 2021. I released my film on Instagram and YouTube. I shared it with my friends and family, then they shared it with their friends and family. Views, likes, comments are all flooding my phone. My friends and strangers message me saying that they love the film. My parents' friends, who I don't know, congratulate me on Facebook, which I'm not on. And I was receiving praise left, right, and center, but I still didn't feel better. I did not feel proud. So all these small moments of failure seem to have compounded into this heavy feeling of shame, self-loathing. This was my artistic rock bottom. But at the time, I didn't show it. And come on, let's be honest, why would I? None of us here are ever excited to fail, right? No one in their right mind hits rock bottom and immediately thinks, oh great, failure, there's so much I can learn from this. No, failure feels horrible. And when I felt it, my only motive for getting back up on my feet and rekindling my determination was to ask myself, what can I do so that I never have to feel this way again? I'm sure that a lot of you have asked yourself this question before, no matter what situation you're in. Now, let's just take an example of an athlete. Let's say that you lose a match that you've been training for a long time. And despite all your hard efforts, despite everything you've done, you still leave the court or the field feeling utterly horrible. You don't take your failure as this good thing or like this miracle or jackpot that's come your way. So what do you do instead? You train harder. You fix your technique. You increase your hours. You improve your timings. And slowly enough, you want to win the next match. And failure starts to become something you can learn from, maybe even your path to success the next time around. Now, when most people talk about this path to success, that shift, they often focus on introspection. And introspection is to reflect on our mistakes so that we never have to repeat them again. And I personally think that introspection is important. Of course it's important, but there's only so much that your own perspective can provide you with. Introspection has its limitations. Therefore, there is one crucial step between failure and success. This brings me to the second step, welcoming other people's perspectives. So, upon introspection, I realized that part of why I felt that my film, Coffee for Two, had failed was because I never really took the time to ask for help. When I thought I had a weak story, I just went with it and I tried to fix it, but then I didn't really reach anywhere. I didn't ask my writer friends for help. When I was struggling to find an actor at the last minute, I didn't ask anyone for help. I just panicked and I just went with the first thing that I had. So I realized that, okay, maybe I can't solve every problem on my own. So this paved the way. This paved the way for me to admit to my closest friends and family that, okay, I had felt like a bit of a failure about my film. And this sort of confession, it opened up the space to replace failure with learning. And this kind of became absolutely essential for the way that I viewed my work. I opened up my feedback to strangers, and at first it was absolutely terrifying because I thought I already knew everything that was wrong with my work. I thought I already knew every single mistake that I've made. But no, there was more. There was more that was wrong with my film. But first, I opened it up and I asked people what they liked about the film. And these were some of their responses. I like the ending, I love the colors, the shots seem very professional. So if you were one of the people who gave me feedback here, I thank you. After all my self loathing, it was certainly refreshing and almost redeeming to see that there was really something people liked about my film. This reminded me of that passion that even drove me to create the film in the first place, seeing my art resonate with people. So, this gave me the strength and the confidence to then do the harder part, which was to ask the same people what they did not like about the film. These were some of their responses. Some of the shots were abrupt. It made no sense whatsoever. I found the dialogue to be overdramatic and unrealistic. It was good, improved the sound quality. Now, this was overwhelming, but if you were one of the people who shared their feedback here, I thank you as well. Opening up my work to such brutally honest feedback was definitely scary, but it helped me see my work in a different light. Now, let's just go back to that example of the athlete for a moment. So, you train hard, but there's only so much that your own perspective of your own performance can provide you with. There will always be things that other people will help point out for you. So you ask your coach, you ask your team captain, you ask your parents, other athletes around you. And so these important people start to point out important things to you, things that you might not have ever noticed before. The incorrect positions of your wrists when you swim, the isolation of your upper body when you play tennis, the way that you don't protect your face when you're kickboxing. There will always be things that other people will help you realize, and this will only propel you forward. Now, let's say that you have your feedback, you have your introspection, extrospection, you are overflowing with the different ways that you can do better. Learning is a great process, but how do we put it to action? This brings me to the last step of the three-step process and my personal favorite, what I like to call the loop of growth. So there are two ways that one can measure their learning. One is by redoing something that they think they failed at, like how I did, how I could have done with my film, or completely start a new project. Either way, the new process is just better informed. So each project becomes like this amalgamation of bits and pieces of feedback and ideas from the people around you, becoming better than the last one. Your internal reflection is multiplied with your external feedback, and that equals to a pleasant loop of learning, learning, and learning. From my learning and not my failure of my previous film, Coffee for Two, I realized what I could do better. And I did. In my next film that I made in April of this year, called The Walls We Break, I made some mistakes, but they were not the same mistakes that I made before. I thought about my other film, Coffee for Two. I thought about the feedback that I received. I also thought about the feedback that I didn't receive. I thought about how there were these countless number of times where I could have asked for help, but I didn't, because I thought I knew all the answers. I didn't. So I decided not to make that choice again. And the entire process, the next time around, was a constant feedback loop. I asked my writer friends what they thought about my script, and I worked on their feedback. I asked my parents if they could direct me to any of the actors that they know, and sure enough, I found one. I reached out to the school and asked them for a filming location, and I shot my film in the very auditorium that we're sitting in right now. So with all of this help, my film, while it was not perfect, it was unbelievably better than the last. So with all this help, that's where I reached. Okay, so if all of this seems to be so sound and so logical and so theoretically amazing, why is it that most people place so much emphasis on introspection and often completely leave feedback and extrospection out of the picture? Well, being open to honest feedback is simple, but it's not easy. The idea of opening up your work to brutally honest and unfiltered opinions can be very daunting. It really can, trust me. But ultimately, this will change the way that you view your work, and it will propel you forward. There are different things to see the feedback as constructive criticism and to really see it as constructive. It requires a sort of lowering of your defenses. Once you've figured out who you want to hear your feedback from, be it your friends and family, or strangers, or experts, that's already half the battle won. After this comes the harder, more gratifying bits of vulnerability, the ability to truly listen, and I would say the most important, gratitude to the people who are trying to push you to be your best. So, what am I trying to say with all of this? The next time that you feel that you have failed at something, ask yourself the question that I asked you at the start of my talk. What could have been done better? After you've done that, ask someone else the same question. What could have been done better? And lastly, once you've entered your very own loop of growth, once you've put your learning to action, is to ask yourself yet again, what could have been done better? You will find that the three answers to this one question are vastly different. That is the power of perspective, and that is the secret to never failing. Thank you.